Hey guys, David Wills here with another episode of TED-IELTS, and today we're going to be doing something a little different to what we normally do. In the past few videos, I've been teaching you about writing, and today instead we're going to learn a little bit of vocabulary that may help you for the IELTS speaking test. Today we're going to be looking at how to talk about pets, different kinds of animals. Now, this is something that comes up sometimes in IELTS Speaking Part 1, and so it might be useful for you to know the names of these animals and to know a little bit about their lives so that you can talk about them in a more advanced way. So, what we're going to do now is move over to my computer and we're going to start up the lesson. Today's topic is pets. Pets is something you might be asked about in the IELTS exam, and so it is useful to be able to talk about them. Even if you don't have a pet, you might be able to talk about one you want to own or one that someone you know has owned. So it is a useful subject. We're going to be looking today at vocabulary. Now in this cute picture here you can see, of course, a dog and a cat. That's a little too basic for IELTS, and so we're going to be talking about a little more advanced vocabulary. We're going to look at how to describe some common and uncommon pets in useful ways. So, what is this? Well, of course, this is a dog. Yes, you know what a dog is. But I'm not here to teach you the word dog today. I'm here to teach you something a little more useful. So what do we call a baby dog? A baby dog is called a puppy. Puppy. So if you have a very young dog, let's say less than 1 year old, you might call it a puppy. So if you're asked about pets that you wanted to own when you were a child, you might say, when I was a child, I really wanted to have a puppy. Now look at this super cute picture here. This is, of course, a cat. But this is, again, a very young cat. It's a baby. So what do we call this? A baby cat is called a kitten. Kitten. So a baby cat is called a kitten. You might also find this shortened to kitty, kitty. Or in American English, they're more likely to say kitty, kitty. Think of the Japanese cartoon character Hello Kitty. That is short for kitten. What about this animal? Do you know what this is? This is a rabbit. A rabbit. But there's another name that we might give to this. Again, maybe a child might call it something else. So a rabbit is also commonly known as a bunny. A bunny. In fact, it is also common to put those two words together to say bunny rabbit. Bunny rabbit. My daughter wants to have a bunny rabbit for a pet. She thinks they're really cute. Let's look at this animal. This is a very, very common pet. In fact, I read recently it's the most common pet in the world. This is a fish. A fish. But what kind of fish is this? Because there are so many kinds. The most common type of pet fish is called a goldfish. Goldfish. Why do we call it goldfish? Well, people used to say they were gold colored. To me, that looks more like orange. But the word orange is very new in English. In fact, it is not very old at all. So many animals are called red or gold. Think of the red deer, the golden eagle. These are not really red or gold, they're more an orange color. But when we first named them, the word orange did not exist in English. Now look at this little cute guy. What is he? This is a hamster. A hamster. So this small little bundle of fur is a hamster. So where does the hamster live? Well, we don't have many hamsters in the wild nowadays, so people keep them as pets. And you can't let them run around your house, so people usually keep hamsters in a cage. A cage. You can see the bars on the cage, and there is a wheel for the hamster to run in, a water bottle, and there's probably a food bowl there as well. The hamster lives in a cage. Now we can see two animals that are quite similar, and I know in some languages they don't really differentiate. In Chinese they call these the same thing. But in English we have two different names because they are in fact two different animals. They look different and have different characteristics. On the left, we can see a mouse. On the right, we can see a rat. There's a brown mouse and a white rat. A mouse is usually smaller than a rat. So what is the plural of mouse? We say one mouse, two mice. Mice. I have 3 mice. I saw 5 mice yesterday. This is an interesting word. Sometimes when you have a word that ends O-U-S-E, we pluralize it with I-C-E, whereas other words just take an S. Think of the word house, for example. We don't say heis, we say houses. This is a very colorful animal. It is a kind of bird. We call it a parrot. Parrot. How long can parrots live for? They can live to be more than 100 years old. That is amazing. They're very intelligent and they can talk. What about these two animals? They are called guinea pigs. Guinea pigs. I don't know why we call them a kind of pig. They obviously don't look like a regular pig. Guinea pigs come from South America. And just like the other animals we saw, rats, mice, and hamsters, they're kind of rodent. Rodent. A rodent is a type of animal, a classification, like bird or fish. So the group, the family, rodents is comprised of rats, mice, hamsters, guinea pigs, and some other animals. This animal is called a chameleon. Chameleon. Look at the word and how it is spelled. It begins with a CH, which you might think is pronounced ch, but it's actually pronounced k. Chameleon. Chameleon. Now, maybe some of you did not know the English word for this, and you thought of another word. Well, the chameleon is a kind of lizard that can change color. So, lizard. Again, like rodent, the lizard is a family of animals that includes many kinds, including the chameleon. This one is famous for changing color. Well, we've got a few more animals we're going to look at, and I'm going to stick them all on the one page, because these ones are much less common, and I don't think that many of you will have these as pets, or necessarily want them. So let's look at these animals in turn. So we'll start off at the top left. This animal is a frog. frog. I'll put the name up on the screen in a moment. Next, this one here, this is a hedgehog. Hedgehog. A hedgehog is quite a popular pet in South Korea, although in Europe we more commonly find them in the wild. This animal here is a snake. A snake. This kind of snake is a python. Python. This one down at the bottom left is a kind of spider. But not just any spider. This is a very big spider, and we call it a tarantula. This animal here looks like a cross between a hamster and a mouse. It is called a gerbil. Gerbil. And finally, I guess most of you know this one. This is a pig. A small pig. So here are their names. Let's practice the pronunciation. Frog, hedgehog, snake, tarantula, gerbil, pig. Let's focus on the pronunciation of these two here. I often hear people confuse the words snake and snack. In particular, often I will hear people say, I'm going to eat a snake. And they mean snack. It is important to get the pronunciation correct because most people don't like eating snakes. This one is pig. It's one of the words many children learn when they first learn English. But even into adulthood, so many English speakers get this wrong. And it's the troublesome I sound in the middle. It's pig. I have many advanced level students who still say pig, pig, as though it is spelled P-E-E-G. But it is P-I-G-I, pig, pig. And we need to be clear on the difference. This animal here is clearly not a pet, or at least it shouldn't be. This is a tiger. Now, an animal that is not commonly kept as a pet, if it is kept as a pet, is called an exotic pet. So think of rich people who own tigers, leopards, lions, and so forth. These are exotic pets. Now we're going to start looking at some language. How do we talk about pets? Well, in English, we usually say to have a pet. And of course, we change have depending on the subject and the tense. For example, when I was 5, I had a dog. Or I'd like to have a hamster someday. We can occasionally say to keep a pet, but it's not very common. For example, he keeps birds, or I kept 5 goldfish when I was young. So this is perfectly fine, it's just a little uncommon. Many English speakers, though, say to raise a pet. And in particular, I've known many of my Chinese students to use this, and it's because it is a direct translation from the Chinese. And I think it's a direct translation from other languages. Now, in English, we might talk about raising chickens, raising pigs, and so forth. That is because we will kill them and eat them later. They are not pets. Well, they can be pets, but when we say to raise them, it is in the farmyard sense. When an animal is a pet, we will not kill it and eat it, so we do not raise it. To raise an animal means to make it get bigger and bigger, and typically for the purpose of later eating it. So we have some questions here, and these are sort of IELTS style questions. Number 1, for example, might be found in part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. Same with with question 2. 3, 4, and 5 would definitely appear in part 3 because they're much more complicated. So let's look at these in more detail and see if we can answer these. You may want to pause the video and have a practice. If you have someone with you, you can practice together. If you're alone, you can practice by speaking aloud or recording your own voice. I will demonstrate with some answers of my own. Number 1, have you ever had a pet? Yeah, I've actually had several pets during my life. When I was a very small child, I had some goldfish. Later, I had 2 rabbits. And during my university years, I had 2 hamsters. Most recently, I had 3 cats, although I was allergic to them. I love animals, and in future will continue to have pets. Number 2, would you like to have a pet? Yeah, I would love to have another pet. Unfortunately, at the moment, I move from country to country for work, and it would not be responsible of me to own a pet because I would have to leave it for long periods of time. I would really love to have a dog, and so when I settle down with a house, I will get 1 or 2 dogs and have them roam around in my garden. Number 3, how do you feel about people having exotic pets? Well, I understand the impulse to own an exotic pet because animals like tigers are really beautiful and fascinating. However, I think it's morally indefensible because these animals should not be kept in such confined space. They should be allowed to roam free in the wild and absolutely should not be kept in a house or in a cage or even a large garden. Number 4, is it ethical for people to have wild animals as pets? No, I do not feel that it is ethical at all for people to have wild animals. I think that wild animals belong in nature, and at the very least, they should be kept in a large wildlife reserve. For them to be kept as pets is completely unethical. It is extremely damaging to the psychological and physical health of the animal and can also be dangerous for the owners or other people nearby. Number 5, what makes a responsible pet owner? A responsible pet owner needs to take care of the physical and mental well-being of his animals. That requires not just feeding them and keeping them clean and healthy, but also showing them love and respect. It means keeping the animal always occupied and entertained, giving it mental stimulation. Sometimes owning pets can come with difficulties. They may exhibit bad behavior, and a person needs to be very patient with that and forgiving. A pet owner should be disciplined, but also loving. And next, we're going to move into a grammar point. This is applicable to animals, but also, of course, to other things. We're going to be looking at how to compare and contrast 2 things using animals as examples. We're going to look at some phrases. We've got, on the other hand, while and whereas. So, on the other hand is a conjunctive adverb. This is something that will typically come at the beginning of a sentence or maybe after a semicolon. While and whereas are conjunctions. They are subordinating conjunctions, in fact. And so the first one, conjunctive adverb, will join 2 independent clauses, while the second 2, while and whereas, will join a complex sentence, which includes an independent and dependent clause. So these 3 words or phrases are actually very similar in meaning. They show contrast. They show difference. However, as we saw, the grammar is not quite the same. That's because they're different parts of speech. So they're very similar in meaning to other words, however, nevertheless, and in contrast. But all of these things have to be used with care. We can't just use them without paying attention to the grammar or punctuation. First, we'll look at on the other hand, which, as I mentioned, is a conjunctive adverb. It can compare two situations, two things, two people, and show a major difference between them. We can see this example. Dogs need lots of attention from humans. On the other hand, cats are very independent animals. Here you can see there is a semicolon, that is down here, and then our conjunctive adverb, and then the comma. This splits the two independent clauses, which could each stand alone as a sentence. It would be possible to say, dogs need lots of attention from humans. Cats are very independent animals. However, we have chosen to bring them together with a conjunctive adverb. While and whereas have the same meaning, but they're going to be used differently. We can use them basically interchangeably, which means we could replace one with the other. For example, while birds are common pets among old people, goldfish are more popular with children. In this case, we say while first, but we could replace it with whereas. Whereas birds are common pets among old people, goldfish are more popular with children. In the second example, women tend to like cats, whereas men prefer dogs. But we could equally say women tend to like cats, while men prefer dogs. So what's the difference? While and whereas are subordinating conjunctions. We're going to use them in complex sentences that feature one independent and one dependent clause. On the other hand is a conjunctive adverb. Might be at the beginning of a sentence, or it could be at the beginning of a second clause, and will always be separated from the rest of the sentence with a comma. It will connect two independent clauses. So let's look at these examples. We can basically say the same thing, but use different words to join them. As you can see, the grammar changes. So, while dogs make wonderful pets, giving a wolf to your child is a bad idea. Or, whereas dogs make wonderful pets, giving a wolf to your child is a bad idea. We could also say, dogs are wonderful pets. On the other hand, giving a wolf to your child is a bad idea. The meaning is the same, but the grammar is different. Finally, let's have a practice. Let's look at these sentences and try to fill in the blanks. I'll give you a moment to think and then show you the correct answer. So we can say while or whereas for the first one. Both of them are acceptable. For the second, we can say on the other hand. For number 3, we can say on the other hand, and number 4, we could say while or whereas. If you're wondering the difference, please do pay attention to the punctuation. The semicolon here tells us we can't use while or whereas. And the lack of semicolon tells us we can't use on the other hand below. Alright, so some more practice. Let's look at these sentences here. I'll let you pause the video if you want to do this exercise. And then we can check some example answers. Here we go. Goldfish make excellent pets for small children. On the other hand, cats make great pets for adults. Dogs need to be walked twice a day, whereas a bird never needs to be walked. Most people consider cats to be quite a normal pet, while pigs are considered a bit unusual. While hamsters only require a small cage, an elephant would require a very, very large one. Okay guys, that is enough for today. I hope you have learned some vocabulary and a little bit of grammar. If you have any questions about animals or IELTS, you can leave them below in the comments section and I'll try to answer them for you. Otherwise, have a nice day. I'll see you next time for another video.